to order the Gateway Board of School Directors Study Session meeting. Today is Tuesday, February 11th, 2020. Would you please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Wow, that sounded great. Roll call, Bonnie. Mr. Caleri.
Here.
Mrs. Cerrucci.
Here.
Mrs. Delaney.
Here.
Mr. Gallagher.
Here.
Mr. Gottman.
Here.
Mr. McIntyre.
Here.
Mr. Ritter.
Here.
Mrs. Warning.
Here.
Mr. Williams.
Here.
All right, I would like to announce before we get started that the board has come out of executive session for an hour to discuss labor as well as personnel. And we also had an executive session on Tuesday, February 4th, following job interviews for personnel. Please just make those notes for the record. First on our agenda is comments from residents on agenda items. Would like to just read from Board Policy 900 that in order to speak at a Gateway School Board meeting, you must be a resident or a taxpayer of the Gateway School District. If you are not permitted to speak at a meeting, but you are permitted to contact the board, the superintendent, via phone, letter, or email. We have a lot of people here today, so we would like to limit your comments to 2 minutes. We'll try to stick on that as much as we can, Bonnie. I would like to give everybody an opportunity to speak. So there's a lot of people here. Several of you have signed up. We'll open it up to anyone who hasn't signed up. But in order to allow everyone ample time, please try to keep your comments brief. So what we will do is we'll start with those who signed up first to speak. That would be, let's start with the topic of the Spectrum Charter School. The first person I have signed up to speak is Ellen Zerba. Ellen, to start us off, say your name, your address, and the subject we know is charter school.
My name is Ellen Zerba. I live at 120 Asbury Court in Monroeville. I'm speaking to you this evening to strongly advocate for the charter renewal of the Spectrum Charter School. I am a resident of Monroeville, and I'm also currently a board member of the Spectrum School. However, I'm speaking to you tonight as a parent of a child on the autism spectrum who is currently enrolled at the school, my 15-year-old son, Andrew. My family is from New York. My husband discovered the Spectrum School while on a business trip to Pittsburgh. After visiting the school on several occasions, we were incredibly impressed by both the staff and students and felt that our son would thrive in this environment. Because of this, we moved from New York to Monroeville specifically to attend the Spectrum Charter School. Let me repeat this. We moved specifically to Monroeville to attend this school, the first autism-specific public charter school in the United States and one of the hidden gems of Monroeville. During the year and a half that Andrew has attended Spectrum, we have seen amazing changes in him. He has excelled academically and thrived socially. He jumps out of bed in the morning, thrilled to go to school. But the most amazing thing of all was earlier this year when he came home and he said to me, "Mom, I have friends who like me." Let me repeat that. "I have friends who like me," he said. Hearing something like that for the first time in 15 years brought me to tears. He finally found a place where he fits in, a place where he can be himself. One of the most important aspects of the school is the incredible work they do to help transition the students from academia to the real world. It's a disgrace that in the United States today, only 14% of individuals on the spectrum are either competitively employed or are in post-secondary education. 14%. However, over the past 5 years at the Spectrum School, 69% of the graduating students were competitively employed or were attending post-secondary education. That's 55 points better than the national average and better than could ever have been achieved if they were enrolled in a typical high school. I'm also here tonight because I have a concern about the charter renewal process and the actions of some members of this very school board. I've learned that a board member or two may have openly solicited select people to come to these meetings. However, as far as I know, no one else from the Spectrum School or from the Gateway District itself were personally invited by this board. As you are all aware, board meetings are public meetings and are posted as such. Therefore, specific notification cannot be given to one group of people and not to another. Such actions pose a concern about potential biases of members of the school board.
Let me interrupt you and just say that one of the rules that I did not read is that when you come to the podium to speak at a board meeting, you are not permitted to disparage a board member or an employee of the Gateway School District, or I have the right to end the conversation. Would you please wrap it up, because you've come to your
Yep.
2-minute limit, ma'am?
I'm wrapping it up right now. Let me remind you that the Spectrum School serves 32 students from 14 different school districts, 4 of these students coming from Gateway. I'm here tonight to ask the board to not play politics with my son's future. I'm here tonight to ask the board to vote yes and renew the charter of the Spectrum Charter School. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Ellen. Next, I have Michelle Gutman.
Give me a minute.
No problem.
Being a shorter person, you always have to do this.
We won't start the timer yet.
Thank you. First, before I start to speak, I would like to acknowledge that there are quite a few folks from the Spectrum family to speak standing out in the aisle and who can't come in and sit, but they are out there as well. Can you hear me? Because I don't know.
Yes.
So I'm Michelle Gutman. I am a resident of Monroeville. I have been, I was figuring this out and I was kind of shocked, over 40 years, and a taxpayer for that entire time as well. I was not a child. I've been on the Spectrum board for slightly over 3 years since my retirement, and I am currently the president of the board. Just to recap, and I think most of the Gateway School District Board knows this, but Spectrum has been in existence for 20 years. We're located on Northern Pike across from the fire hall. We have about, and I say about because it varies, 32 students attending ages 13 to 21. We have a ratio of staff to student per class of 8 to 2. We are able to maintain very small classes, which is to the benefit of the population at our school. One of the things that Ellen touched on is the transition program. And perhaps the board is aware of this, but in case it is something that you aren't aware of, our students go out into the outside world and volunteer at a number of entities, including Brothers, Carnegie Science Center, Concordia of Monroeville, which is next door, the Monroeville Chamber of Commerce, Monroeville Christian Church, the Public Library, and the Westmoreland Food Bank. And that is not all of them, but it's representative of what the kids are getting out and doing, and they're they're learning tasks and doing work at those places. In these 3 years that I have been on the board, I've had the opportunity to observe the really positive impact on students' lives. I am a mother, I am a grandmother, and I am the sister of a person on the spectrum, so I feel strongly about the opportunities that they can have. I understand that you've received a number of letters from parents and family of Spectrum students. I was asked to read a letter from the Monroeville Christian Church, and in the interest of time, I'm just going to excerpt from it. But our kids have been volunteering at the church for over 15 years, and the church urges the board to consider renewal of the charter.
Why don't you give that letter to Mrs. Isha, and she can copy it and distribute it to the board members?
Sure, I can do that right now. I brought a copy. Should I do it after I finish speaking, I
Yeah.
guess? I think that it's important for you to understand the makeup of the school, because it's not only the first school focused on autism in the country. Because of that, it is a very unique school. So a lot of the conventions that you bring to your ideas about the school may not, in fact, be accurate. We have 30 children with IEPs in our school. Of those, more than 2/3 are on the spectrum. These kids require, generally speaking, more intensive intervention, including the small class size, than you might get over the range of special education kids that are out there. So it just goes to one of the special aspects of spectrum that presents us with both an opportunity and a challenge. One of the things that is on the agenda, and I'm not speaking to it generally, but as it impacts spectrum, is the resolution. that resolution that you'll be considering later suggests that charter schools are being paid more than it costs to educate the children at the school. In the case of Spectrum, this simply is not true. Currently, the formula for tuition transfer to a charter school is based on the average of the special education budget for the kids. Our children are not average in terms of where they are. I think most of them are in Tier 4, which probably means more to you than it did to me up until a few weeks ago. But because we largely educate special education kids with intensive interventions, our costs are significantly higher than the district's average. And for that reason, the tuition we get from the 14 school districts does not actually cover our entire budget. And we engage in fundraising from philanthropies to make up the difference. So our 990 is out there. You can look at it. But you can see that we don't get more money from the school districts than it costs to educate our students. I just want you to be aware of that as you consider, because I know this is a really complex issue in the state of Pennsylvania, and there are a lot of pros and cons with respect to charter schools and a lot of controversy over them. But as it applies to Spectrum, we do not get more money from the school districts than we spend on the kids. So in conclusion, I just want to urge the school board to renew the charter as in your resolution for January 1st, 2020 to December 31st, 2024. Thank you for your time, and thank you for the opportunity to speak to you.
Thank you, Michelle. Alicia Pasco.
Alicia Pasco.
Alicia.
My name's Elisa Pasco, and I live at 4404 Ruth Drive in Monroeville. I served on Spectrum's board for 8 years. In addition to some of the comments that were made in support of Spectrum, I wanted to add that as a resident and taxpayer of Gateway School District, I have financial concerns about not renewing the charter. Spectrum currently has only minimal financial impact on the district. Gateway currently pays approximately $37,100 for each of the only 4 students that are enrolled at Spectrum. But based on the need for a specialized education setting, these students would likely need another specialized setting outside of Gateway School District. Tuition at approved private schools in the Pittsburgh area that specialize in autism spectrum disorders is significantly more than Spectrum. The AIU schools cost approximately $43,000 per year. Other private school tuitions range from $47,000 up to $71,000 per year. These costs do not include extended school year or the additional supports which would likely be needed in a larger school environment, such as a one-on-one aide. Transportation can add another $4,800 per month if a student needs to be bused to one of these faraway locations. Gateway should take pride in having a school right in Monroeville with great outcomes, which provides a safe haven for students who have poor educational experiences in their home districts. Closing Spectrum would send 32 students from 14 school districts back into uncertain and in some cases unsafe learning environments. I'm asking that you please renew the charter for Spectrum Charter School.
Thank you. Ashley Kostrub. Sorry if I mispronounced that. Thomas McLean will be after Ashley.
Ashley here?
Wow.
Hi. Hello, everyone. My name is Ashley Kostrup, and I'm a mental health professional that has worked with Spectrum Charter School for the last 5 years. My job has required me to partner with Spectrum on several of my cases. As part of my job is to help advocate for what's best. Sorry, I'm losing my voice too. Part of my job is to help advocate for what's most appropriate for some of my students with IEPs, and I've seen a lot of the struggles many of my students have had. A lot of them have tried to attend their home schools, and it didn't work out for one reason or another. Most of my kiddos are not aggressive for schools like APSs. and many are too high functioning for other schools in the area, like the AIU schools. So what's most appropriate seems like Spectrum Charter. It's where these kids fit the best. The school has been the best fit for many of my clients during the most recent years. The school has shown my clients great support, camaraderie, and independence. These teachers work late hours, spend their own money to make sure each student have what they need on a daily basis. The kids come to school. Very sorry. Come to school and feel safe. They feel like they belong somewhere. I've seen firsthand how Spectrum Charter has made a difference in students. For example, I've witnessed a student become very independent without a need of an aid because of the smaller classrooms and more individualized attention. I've even witnessed graduation, and they've even helped with employment, all with the skills learned and friendships made while attending schools. It's also very refreshing that all the staff are very accommodating and willing to collaborate with me. I don't always see this at other schools. I've even recommended Spectrum Charter to many of my coworkers, other families I've worked with, and other providers. I continue to look forward working with them in the future. I believe this program is an asset to all of our autistic spectrum students and this population out here, especially in this east side of Pittsburgh. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thomas McLean, and on deck is Amanda Kotz.
Good evening. My name is Thomas McLean. I reside at 302 Coleman Drive in Monroeville. About a year and a half ago, I decided to move to the Gateway School District. Me and my wife, strictly based on the school district. We were in a previous school district neighboring to here that we were not happy with. We did our research and decided this was the best place to be. And I'm also unusual in the sense that my son Cameron's here. He's been going to Spectrum for about 7 years. And I also have a 13-year-old at Mosside Middle. So I'm doubly invested in the school district. And forgive my nervous tone, but I'm a little discouraged that we even have to be here for this. Because to acknowledge people on the hallway, they're going out the door and down the fire escape, all wanting to be here for the same reason, because of Spectrum. And most of the people I've never met before, even though they've been going to the same school as my child. And it heartens me to see this many people show up for Spectrum, and they're all here for the same reason, because of what this school has done for our children. When you have an autistic child, you have a lot of worry about what's going to happen to them in the future, what's the best place to get them an education. And just 2 weeks ago, me and Cameron's mother had to spend a whole day investigating places he's going to go after Spectrum. Every parent goes through that who goes to Spectrum. You investigate every option in extreme detail to make sure it's right for your child, because if it's not, it's terrifying. We chose Spectrum because it was the best place for our Cameron, and because of Spectrum, now we realize Cameron actually can work once he becomes eligible to work. Spectrum takes them out, they get jobs, they volunteer. I've been married to 2 teachers who have over 30 years of experience, and I can tell you in 7 years of Spectrum, I've been to more charity and community events through Spectrum than I have ever been through any public school in my life. Every month or so, there's something going on with the community. And with the teacher in Pittsburgh Public Schools, we have never had that. So this school does more than just educate the kids. They educate the community, they involve the community. Every event they have in the community is open to everybody, not just the Spectrum kids. It's open to everybody. And everybody shows up, and I just love the fact that there's people in this hallway who are crying because they're so upset about what this board may potentially do. And one thing I can tell you is they're not going away. I'm not going away. We'll all be back. We'll probably be back next week or whenever the next meeting is to talk about this. We're not going away. And I just want to give a shout out to everyone out there who can't be seen, but you'll probably see them when you leave. Thank you for your time, and please approve this charter.
Amanda Kotz and then Barb Bain.
Hello. My I need to preface this by saying I do not like public speaking, but I am here because I love Spectrum Charter School. So, my name is Amanda Kotz, and I come to you with a unique perspective. I'm an employee of Spectrum Charter School, a previous employee of the Children's Institute, a Monroeville resident, a proud Gateway mother, and closest to my heart, the parent of an autistic son with communication and behavioral challenges. With a combination of these different experiences, I feel confident and passionate in saying that Spectrum is an exceptional place. Since my start at Spectrum, I've seen students grow academically, socially, emotionally, and I've really been overwhelmed by the care, support, and expertise this school provides. This is a small classroom and individualized learning environment and has allowed these children and young adults with autism and other special needs and challenges the opportunity to succeed and to belong. I see students happy to come to school, excited to see their friends, involved in student council, dances, and clubs, which would be more challenging in a larger public school setting. I see supports and enrichment activities like music, yoga, therapy dogs, and counseling that are unparalleled. And I see students dedicated to contributing to the Monroeville community and surrounding areas by volunteering at churches, food banks, community centers, and elder care homes, in addition to job training at local businesses. I see teachers and staff with a profound dedication to the success of their students and a deep passion for education. This is a family. Our parents, students, staff, and board support one another. They go above and beyond every day to create a school environment that gives students who come to Spectrum with complicated academic and social histories the opportunity to grow, to shine, and to reach their full potential. We are currently in the process of celebrating our 20th birthday. Happy birthday, Spectrum. And in those 20 years, Spectrum has been a part of this community. We work to build relationships with our neighbors through free community-based events and fundraisers, and we strive to make new connections within our community to make our students better citizens. So when you're making the decision as to whether or not to renew Spectrum Charter School status, please listen to the 32 voices of the families and students and the 15 staff and the countless alumni who are from Monroeville and the surrounding areas, and realize what a devastating effect this will have on not just us, but what a negative effect this will have on the community. Spectrum is a part of the diverse fabric of Monroeville, and we hope it will be so for many years to come. Thank you.
After Barb Bain is Rachel or Sean Kennedy. Rachel and Sean Kennedy.
I'm Barbara Bain. I live at 422 Cottage Lane, and I am coming with a different view of Spectrum that I want to share with you. Some of you in this room know that I taught at Gateway for 30 years. In fact, some of my students are here teaching now. I loved my experience at Gateway. I loved teaching here. I loved the experience of having my kids grow up here. But my oldest grew up and had a child who is autistic. It opened a whole new world to my family. And my daughter does not live in this area. She lives in another area where her experience was a nightmare. Just trying to educate her oldest child took so much energy you can't imagine. I couldn't help her in the Harrisburg area, but I decided to see what I could do here. I went to a Spectrum Advisory Board meeting, and before I knew it, I'm on the board. I come to you because I've seen what Spectrum does for families. Gateway is amazing in their education of special ed kids, but not all kids fit into it. I have seen myself, and Dr. Short can verify, I always had one class of inclusion, and I taught honors classes, by the way. This school meets the parents' need to be involved, but also to take a break. My experience with my daughter was that when she took her son to public school, somewhere in the shuffle, There's lots of homework, there's lots of stuff you have to do at home. This school takes that into consideration. And I think you can see just from the parents that have spoken here what a relief it was when they came to Spectrum. I'm proud that it's part of Gateway School District. I feel it's one of the best things you've ever done, and I hope you keep it up.
Hi, we're Rachel and Sean Kennedy. We're 1188 St. Vincent Drive, Monroeville. We are here to discuss a 5-year renewal for Spectrum Charter School. We recently moved from Texas, where our son spent kindergarten through 9th grade in mainstream school. We did not have school choice options. When we knew there was a possibility of my husband accepting a job in Pennsylvania, I was thrilled to find info on Spectrum Charter via internet. The size and programs offered seemed like such a perfect fit. My son and I drove from Texas to tour Spectrum and were both impressed, therefore we got on the list. We specifically looked for a home in the Gateway School District to ensure he got a spot at this school. Our son has been here now for almost 2 years, and we have been completely thrilled with this school. Spectrum has been life-changing for our son and family. His teacher is phenomenal and has such good communication with us. When behaviors arise, she works so well with us to come up with successful resolutions. Our son's work is tailored to fit his needs, making success a reality for him, whereas before in mainstream, he was just falling in the cracks, playing catch-up at the end of the grading periods. The transition program has been amazing in teaching him working skills. He has now successfully held a job in the community for almost a year. We have seen so much growth from him since attending this school. Our son has mentioned on more than one occasion for the first time he truly feels like he belongs and has true friends. The move away from all our family and everything we have ever known was extremely difficult. We did not know how this would affect our son, so all our decisions centered around him and the school we would choose. I credit this school for such a successful transition at what could have been an extremely difficult time in his life. The staff has been nothing but professional and supportive. I ask that you would reconsider renewing Spectrum Charter School, for the work they do for all of our children is truly life-changing. Thank you for your time and hearing me on this matter today.
All right, that concludes our residents for the topic of Spectrum Charter School. I would just like to let you know, those of you who are here from Spectrum Charter School, that the motion to vote on the charter was tabled. So it is not going to be untabled tonight. It will not be voted on tonight. According to the Pennsylvania Department of Education's website, just so people who aren't from the school understand, what we're talking about, it is our obligation to conduct a comprehensive review prior to granting a 5-year renewal of a charter school. We take that very seriously, especially if there is a resident or an individual who may come to us with a concern. So the item was tabled so that it could be fully researched. Part of that research includes getting information from your school, which has been provided to us, and it is under review. So once that review is complete, it will be untabled and then voted on. So I thank you all very much for coming out and sharing your heartfelt concerns, and obviously, you're very happy with your school. We appreciate your input, but I do want to let you know that it will not be voted on this evening. Thank you again.
Can they come in? I'm sorry for speaking out of turn, but can everybody come in so you can see how important this is to all of us?
Sure, that will be fine. Should I repeat what I said? Because I was really off the cuff. Who's outside? Should have moved the old, yeah. Come on in. I'll repeat the abbreviated version. I thought there was only 30 students. Come on in, don't be shy. Is that everybody? Come on, guys. Come on. Well, he's not from Spectrum. He's not from Spectrum. I don't imagine that you all heard what I said at the conclusion of the talks. Do I need to repeat? Try to repeat? It was totally off the cuff. What I said was, I thanked you all for coming to share your input and your love and appreciation for your school. And I just read briefly from the PDA website that says that it is our obligation as a school board to conduct a comprehensive review prior to granting a 5-year renewal of a charter school, and that we take that very seriously, especially when a community member brings a concern to our board. So what we did was, when we had that concern presented to us, we tabled it. It is tabled at the time being. We have received information that was requested. It is under review. We just received that a couple days ago. It will not be voted on tonight. It will remain tabled until that review is complete, and then it will be untabled and voted on. So I appreciate all of you coming out here to express your concern, and thank you. And we will.
Will there be public notice when it is untabled, when the board is going to vote?
Yes.
So,
There'll actually be a public hearing.
No, not if it's untabled. If
Once
it's-
you're on table it. No, after that, you're right. Yes. You're right.
Do we anticipate having this information processed and analyzed within the next week, Dr. Short?
It's an ambitious task. There's a lot of documents that were presented. I did speak with Michelle Johnson, and I can't give a yay or a nay at this point, but perhaps within 48 hours, we can let everyone know.
Maybe a better, or at least an alternate version, would be to just go ahead and say at this point, next week, we will not have it ready. And next week, we can make the announcement that the following week, we'll be ready to make the
That
recommendation.
is correct, yes. I'd feel more comfortable knowing in March that we would be able to address this.
Okay.
Okay? Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Yes. You know what, I'll let you, right, here, right?
Honestly, the rest of the meeting. Go have a beer. Now, we're gonna get yelled at by 30 people. It's all good.
This is my letter. There's about 10 copies there I had.
Okay.
I wasn't sure how many were.
I'll get them out. There are 9 on the board, but I'll get them to our administrators as well.
Awesome.
Okay. Your name is?
Was Sidlow, Lenore.
Oh,
The
okay.
Swissville resident.
Yeah, the Swissville, okay.
Yeah, who,
Okay.
there was no way he was not. He was coming to Spectrum no matter what.
Good that you're in 10 mile radius.
And, oh, I made sure of that. This is him today. I made sure of that.
She might remember me.
Come in, so I think I'll have her like them to me. Okay.
Yeah.
Yes.
A lot of people. Right.
Should have took a 5-minute recess. People on TV are watching. Do you need a 5-minute recess? Mics are still on.
It's actually my daughter. Yeah.
Oh, is that right?
Really quick.
Oh.
They had 12 It is.
All right, so next we're going to go on to people who've signed up to speak on the topic of the athletic director position. Once the room clears out. It is, yeah, it is. Yeah, it is. I'd like to remind everybody the rules. When we have over 5 people, try to keep your comments to 2 minutes if you can to allow everybody to speak. First up, I have Ken Stankovich. State your name and address for the record, please. There's some more chairs. You could- Come on in. We're all friends here.
I think it's appropriate. You can take a knee if you want.
No, we don't take knees here. There's 3.
Football reference.
I take that back, sorry. There's 3 open seats here. We do? Go ahead. We're back in order.
All right, Ken Stankovich, 142 Killbuck Drive, Monroeville. Monroeville resident for the last 21 years now. And as president of Gateway Football Boosters over the last few years, I've had the opportunity to not only get to know, but also get to work with Coach Don Hall. One thing I've found in working with him, and I guess I shouldn't be surprised as a graduate of the Naval Academy, I guess it should be expected. But what I found is a very bright man, very organized, very dedicated, focused, and structured individual. My dealings with him are pretty much 12 months a year, from preseason through the season, dealing with budgets, coordinating events, schedules. One aspect of my job I never had to worry about was the responsibilities of coach. I always knew what was expected of him would be delivered to me on time within what was needed. So made my job easy knowing that. The other thing that surprised me in working with him is a fiscally responsible individual. Realizing we struggle with our fundraising, as you all know, with your gracious effort to support us with rings, his wishes and desires are very reasonable. We met at the beginning of the year. Hey, Ken, these are my priorities. These are secondary. Let's figure out what we can do, what we can maybe put off to next year, what we can maybe fundraise. But very fiscally responsible. And I know as an athletic director working for a school district who is also very fiscally responsible, he aligns very well with what you're trying to accomplish. So from a business perspective, I really can't see anyone more qualified than him. But to close real quickly, what separates him from the others is he's not a Gateway guy, but I'm not sure I've ever met anyone more passionate about the Gateway Athletic Department, the Gateway School District, Monroeville, Pitcairn. Dr. Short, you and I spoke briefly when we had the student body incident in McKeesport, and I talked about Coach Hall demanding that we rep the G. He means it. He believes it. He has a passion for the school district and will do whatever he can to make sure that we are doing the best that we can as a district, as an athletic department moving forward. And as I said, I don't think there's a better candidate you can have professionally, business-wise, and a passion for the school district than Don Hall. Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Stankovich. Don Nicolazzo. After Don, on deck will be Jill Shetty.
Good evening, Dawn Nicolazzo, 209 Londonderry Court, Monroeville. I'm here to speak on behalf of Don Hall. I've had the pleasure of working with Don Hall in several capacities since he joined our Gateway family in February 2016. Don brings leadership qualities to our district that can't be duplicated. Athletes under Don's leadership are respected and, most importantly, respectful. Inclusiveness and unity are a part of our athletic and activity program. Don includes the cheerleaders and band as a part of the success of the football program. He makes a point of attending band camp and thanking them for their hard work and success. Football players pass out cold treats to show their support and thanks. He hosts a picnic at his home for senior players and cheerleaders each year and discusses qualities of a leader, being a positive role model in future endeavors beyond high school. Our elementary summer reading program has benefited from Don's influence of promoting positive social interactions and role modeling between high school athletes and elementary students. His manner never demands respect. He earns respect by giving respect. It doesn't matter your color, age, sex, or status in the community. Don treats everyone with dignity and respect. He is a part of our community already and looking forward to putting roots down in our community. Don has the qualities that exemplify the athletic director we need here at Gateway. He has the vision, charisma, emotional intelligence, integrity, character, and grit our district needs and will benefit from now and for years to come. He does not see color nor sex. He sees children who deserve every opportunity to try and succeed no matter their ability if they have the desire and heart. He sees a community who loves their black and gold and wants the best for their students, just as he does. I would like to end with a quote from President Woodrow Wilson that I feel describes the work ethic of Don Hall and what he brings to the table as candidate for athletic director. You are not here merely to make a living. You are here in order to enable the world to live more amply, with greater vision, with a finer spirit of hope and achievement. You are here to enrich the world, and you impoverish yourself if you forget the errand. Please consider Don Hall as the most successful candidate for athletic director. He is the leader our district and community will benefit from the most. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dawn. Mrs. Fischetti.
Now, see, I get to work with Dawn with dirty laundry. So, my name's Jill Fischetti. I'm a secretary at Gateway Middle School, and I don't like to public speak. Those of you that know me, I love to talk, but not in front of a group, so I'm a little nervous.
You're fine.
But I just want you to know how strongly I feel. I know the board all knows because I have sent emails, letters. I'm sure you're sick of me by now, but that's how strongly I feel about what a fantastic person Don is, and I think he would be a fantastic athletic director as well. So one thing that I'm sure he would never tell anybody, he's very kind, very humble. Derek Aker, anybody that knows Derek, has been around for years. His father recently passed away, and he actually took the day off to go to the funeral for Derek. And myself, he helped me when I lost a niece and a nephew. So I know he wouldn't tell people that, but it was very important, and that's something that I'll never forget. So that's it. I really think he should be considered as the athletic director and coach. We can't lose him as our coach.
Kip Stewart, you're next.
That was a little hot. Well, my name is Kip Stewart, 301 Ricky Drive. I'm the president of Gateway Midget Football Cheerleading Association. These are my executive board members, Dennis Biggs and Dev Woods. Coming to you on behalf of Coach Hall. For our perspective, he has been a tremendous help to our organization. We kind of both came in at the same time as far as our board that we have now currently, and Coach Hall. He's helped us in terms of planning, organizing, schematics. He's spent countless hours of time with us, our kids. He shows up at our senior days, our speed and agility camps, comes down to our scrimmages, comes to games. To me, there's no other person or image that I would want an athletic director as well as a head coach. I can share a quick story with you. There's a man named Bob Jacoby. He's a Whip Hill Hall of Fame inductee head coach. He was also athletic director and a head coach of Bishop Canevin Catholic, which I graduated from. He was a great impact in my life, and one of the reasons why I say that is because his door was always open. Continuity, stability, and everything, and integrity, they're all great, but connectivity was awesome because he was always there. So he can be a coach, but to be an athletic director, if you really want like fruitful impact, these are the things that you kind of need to implement in your school. You're speaking to somebody who has actually felt the impact of that and the fruits of that. I'll let these two gentlemen.
One of the things that I thought about, because I spoke a couple weeks ago regarding Coach Hall, was the impact away from sports. And one of the things that really stands with me as a board member for GMFCA, as well as a parent within the school district, is my son was actually a team manager this past year. And one of the things that Coach Hall did was he really impacted my son to the point he wants him to be a good human. And so he really brought him into the entire high school team. He gave them a book. The book's called The Champion's Mind. So my son, he really hates reading. But I find him reading the book because Coach Hall gave him that book, and he wants to be a good human. He wants to be a better student. He wants to be a better student athlete. He wants to impact just like other people have impacted him. And I think that's what really matters when it comes to an individual that shares those kind of leader quality skills that Coach Hall has. So I would definitely love to see Coach Hall in that position of athletic director and of head coach as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Zach Smith.
Good evening, Zach Smith, 221 Britton Street, Monroeville, resident of 18 years, current head coach at Gateway Middle School. Coach Biggs stole something from me here, stole my air. I got to meet Coach Hall when he was introduced in the ALGI, and everybody had a lot of problems about asking, were you going to drive 45, 50 minutes every day? He did. You heard from several people say about his business, about leadership roles, and Biggs just recently about being a good human being. You're only asked in life once to be a good human being. I got to experience something with him that nobody in the room here has. It was on my first year. They were running the offense. The man's name was Travis, who ran a slant to catch the ball. Coach Hall was distracted and was taken out by that football player. The team didn't know what to do. The kid was almost in tears. Don Hall laid there motionless. Nobody really knew what was about to happen, nor did I. He gathered his thoughts, Coach Hall. The team was standing around him. Travis was in tears. He told everybody to take a knee, collect their thoughts and have a moment. If they wanted to say a prayer to whoever they prayed to, they could do that. Coach Hall went and got some attention, came right back at it. At that point, I knew my kid was in good hands. That is a good human being. He didn't lose his cool. He kept going and continued on and limped throughout the day. I urge you to continue your thoughts on giving him a chance at an athletic director's position. A good human being is that exactly it. Coach Hall.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. John Walker.
Evening, everybody. Can't believe I'm here again. John Walker, 733 Illini Drive. I've lived in Monroeville 55 years. I might have everybody beat except for Dr. Short.
He doesn't live here.
Not much. A year, maybe. I don't think we need to talk about Coach Hall's resume. I think that speaks for itself. I'm going to be very quick and very brief. I think what I want to say is about the academic end of sports. To me, they're intertwined. And this man has proven in the football side of it that he's successful. And I think when you get successful in sports, you're successful in academics, you're successful in life. And what he did with the football program, I think he will do for your sports programs, every one of them. And I think Scotty, I'm going to remember 4 or 5 years ago, me questioning this hire, and he converted me to a believer in this man. I still call to this man to this day to help me with things I have to do. One of the most intelligent men I know, men. So that's about it. If you guys want to keep him here, I'd say keep him here. He will. It's worth every penny you pay him, and he is worth the hire. He is worth this community. He wants to be in this community. So that's all I have to say.
Thank you, Mr. Walker. Anthony Hampton.
Good evening. Anthony Hampton, 513 Lyrics Road in Garden City, Monroeville. I met Coach Hall 2017 for my senior year. And those for you have known the past football years, and when I was here anyway, we were coming off some tough times, some tough losses. And when I met Coach Hall, I was almost in awe for real because, and I'm sorry for my informal language here, but you know, he was a man that made you want to do better. He gave me 3 characteristics that I still use to this day. Coach Hall is very transparent. He's not going to lie to you. He's going to tell you exactly how he feels and what you're doing and what you're not doing. And I really respected that because at the time when I was a young man, I really needed that. And that's changed the way I live my life, like for real. Number 2, his commitment. A point was brought here earlier that he drives 50 minutes on the turnpike to come here, and he does not live here. And I've been to his house for that senior picnic that year. And that's when I really realized the commitment this man was making to this community, and it's paying off. We got 2 championships, and he's been here 3 years. That he's already in question to be the best coach in Gateway history, like, if you think about it. And number 3, he's just a natural leader. Coming from that military background, he'll show you how to be a leader, and he'll show you and he'll point you in the direct direction that you need to go. And he influenced me on some of my decisions. He helped me in my personal life. Even though I haven't talked to him besides today to come here, I knew I had to come here to speak because this man has done things that he doesn't even know he's done. And he has a great coaching staff behind him. This is a great coaching staff. And I truly believe there's no better candidate to have him as his athletic director.
Thank you. Thanks, Anthony. Derek Acar? Aker. Hi, Derek.
Hi. My name's 1484 Capital Road, Monroeville. Coach Hall is a good man. Head coach, great coaching staff. And I want him AD. That's what I want. I want him AD full time. That's what I want.
All right. Thank you, Derek. George Lapsevich.
Good evening, Board. Good to see you again. Good evening. I'm here tonight to speak about a good man, a family man, a teacher, a coach, a mentor, and one who has served our country proudly. He is well-schooled in the Whipple rules and regulations, and most importantly, in our school district. You all know who I'm talking about. It is Coach Don Hall. When you talk to any players or students, they all talk of him with utmost respect. He was hired 4 years ago for his background, confidence, compassion, and experience, and has more than proven himself in his past 4 years at Gateway. He has elevated our football team on our school district as a force to be reckoned with, on and off the field. I was on a school board when we hired him and have worked with him as I was on the athletic board. So honestly, I can say I've seen him firsthand doing his job and doing it quite well. As far as the school policy goes, it was a resolution in July 25th, 2018 that any administrator could be a head coach. The vote that night was 8 yeas, 1 no. So why change the position now because of some whims or of a few? I, for one, see no rhyme or reason for this policy change other than for someone's own agenda. I hope you all back me keeping Coach Hall at Gateway as our athletic director. Let's keep going forward, not backwards. When I was on school board, our motivation was honesty and transparency, not politics. So let's keep it that way. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lapsevich. Is there anyone who did not sign up who wishes to address the board?
Good evening. My name is Jory Jackson, 527 Fieldstone Drive, Monroeville. I've been a resident since 2010. I have 4 children and my husband, and we chose to come to Gateway. I always knew I got my first place probably in like 99 out here, but then we moved and then had children. So we became a part of the school district in 2010. And I have 4 children, and we're not done. We're still rolling through. We'll be Gators for life. And I've come to speak on behalf of Coach Hall. And my son, he graduated last year. And I look at what he did through football. Me, I'm just a mom, just a parent, biggest fan, but still, I look at what he learned, and he brought a brotherhood to those kids, just going away. And I just watched my son grow and to where football became, okay, we play basketball, baseball, football, but football became his passion. And I credit Coach Hall for that. And just what he just taught them, it's a family, and he's very diverse. We need that. And he's young, and these kids look up to him like he's more a leader, great leader, father, family. He travels for us. And that's because this is his passion. He is a Gator, and he wears it. And these kids deserve that. We deserve it as a community. And he would be the best athletic director for us. We need it. And I hope you get this.
Thank you. Would anybody else like to address the board before we move on? Okay.
Motion to take a 5 to 8 minute recess.
Really, 5 to 8.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Is this for an executive session for personnel matters? Is this executive session? For
No, this is,
recess?
this is just a recess.
Just a recess?
Yes.
Stretch your legs.
Okay,
Yeah,
we're
some
gonna
of
take a
us-
5-minute recess.
We've had a lot of coffee.
We're gonna start with personnel tonight. Mrs. Crump, if you would. Can we go out of order, Mr. Schott? Do you mind if we come back to you?
We can do that.
Okay.
Thank you, Ms. Cerrucci. Tonight, we have several items to present for you to review for the next board meeting on February 18th. Under resignations, we do have 8 listed. We do want to call attention to, though, we do have 5 retirements. And we want to recognize Antoinette Checkless, who's been with the district for over 16 years. She's a lunchroom aide at Evergreen. Larry Boswell is a custodian who'll be retiring in January of 2021 with 28 years. Yes, it is. It's right there, black and white. Sue Payne with 23 years. She's our physical education teacher at Mosside Middle School. Henry Perriello with 35 years at the Gateway High School, and Mary Jane Petrilli with 28 years at the high school. So we congratulate them and thank them for their service and everything that they've done for the district. Yes, sir.
It says 2021.
Correct. In their contract, they have an option to submit their retirement 1 year in advance.
Oh,
Helps us with staffing, so that's a great
thank
thing.
you.
Under leaves of absence, we have 2 listed. Under transfers for the collective bargaining agreement, we have 1. Under 4 for employment, we have a temporary teaching position, 4 paraprofessionals that we'll be adding to our rosters. Under C, substitute food service, and we'll be adding item D, which is to approve the appointment of Don Hall to perform the duties of athletic director, which will be on the next agenda. Under 5 supplemental contracts, we have 2 listed. 6 athletic event workers, there are 2, and under volunteers, we have 4.
I'd like to make a motion to go ahead and just approve item 4D tonight.
You mean you're asking to make a motion to make it an action item for tonight?
I'm making a motion to take a vote on it tonight. It would require a supermajority approval.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion to make the appointment of athletic director to Don Hall for an action item this evening. Is there any questions or comments before we vote on making that an action item?
No, we were voting on hiring Mr. Hall. We're
We
not.
have to make it an action item, sir.
No, we do not.
Yes, we do.
Oh, no, I'm sorry. No, this is okay, you're right. It's a board member. However you want to do it.
Bonnie? Pending agreement of terms and conditions, we will make this an action item for this evening.
Mrs. Cerrucci.
Aye.
Mrs. Delaney.
This is just
You're
voting to put it on the
make it an
agenda.
action item right now.
Mr. Gallagher.
Aye.
Mr. Gottman.
Aye.
Mr. McIntyre.
Aye.
Mr. Ritter.
Aye.
Mrs. Warning.
I gotta think about this. Yes, aye.
Mr. Williams.
Aye.
Mr. Caleri.
Aye.
Now it's an action item. It's officially on the agenda.
I'd like to make a motion to hire Coach Don Hall as Gateway Athletic Director.
Is there a second? Pending
Second.
terms
Terms
and
and conditions of a
conditions.
contract.
Thank you.
Second.
Is Paul.
Is there any discussion further? Is there anybody in the audience who would like to comment on the action item that was just added to the agenda?
Nope.
Seeing none? Roll call, please.
Mrs. Delaney.
I will.
Mr. Gallagher.
Aye.
Mr. Gottman.
Abstain.
Mr. McIntyre.
Texas size 10-4.
Mr. Ritter.
Aye.
Mrs. Warning.
Definitely.
Mr. Williams.
Aye.
Mr. Caleri.
Aye.
Mrs. Cerrucci.
Aye.
Motion
Motion carries. Congratulations. All right,
Congratulations.
are there any questions for discussion on Section D on the regular personnel agenda for next week for Mrs. Crump? Okay. See, I didn't forget you, Mr. Schott. Section B.
Section B, I would like to present the following financial reports this evening for the board's review, specifically comprised of Section B1, list of bills for the month of February 2020. Section B2, monthly financial statements for the month of January 2020. And Section B3, budget transfers for the month of February 2020.
Are there any questions for Mr. Schott on the budget that you all received via email and in board docs? None at this time. Section C, item previously tabled. think that is to remain.
Good news, but I can't hear, I'm sorry. I can't hear.
Section E, conferences and conventions. Dr. Chaky.
Thank you, Ms. Rucci. For discussion tonight, we have one conference for Vicky Rocco to the PASNAP Conference, March 27th, 29th.
Actually, they'd like to have that as an action item, if we could do that, if it's possible.
Oh, it does say action item. My apologies.
So moved.
Second.
Any questions? What is PASNAP conference for those watching?
Pennsylvania School Nursing and Practitioners Conference.
Okay, roll call.
Okay, Mr. Gallagher.
Aye.
Mr. Gottman.
Aye.
Mr. McIntyre.
Aye.
Mr. Ritter.
Aye.
Mrs. Warning. Mr. Williams.
Aye.
Mr. Caleri.
Aye.
Mrs. Cerrucci.
Aye.
Mrs. Delaney. Thank you.
Motion carries. Okay, section F, we also have an action item, section F, administrative resolutions.
We have two action items. Number one, 30-day public display of policy 220 and 913. And item number two, educational training agreement with Carnegie Mellon University Robotics Academy for the VEX Robots, and it'll be in Title IV.
So moved.
Second.
Questions, comments? Seeing none? Roll call when you're ready, Bonnie.
Mr. Gottman. Mr. McIntyre.
Aye.
Mr. Ritter.
Aye.
Mrs. Warning. Mr. Williams.
Aye.
Mr. Caleri.
Aye.
Mrs. Cerrucci.
Aye.
Mrs. Delaney. Mr. Gallagher. Motion carries.
All right, section F, the non-action items.
One under elementary education is a step-by-step learning for professional development services for Title II non-public equitable share.
Item number two, field trip request for the FBLA state competition in Hershey. Also, item number three, the 2020-21 school year calendar.
Item number four, approve the Tricog Land Bank's notice of intent to acquire 3 Monroeville properties and 1 Pitcairn property located within the Gateway School District, and the waiver of all applicable taxes, tax claims, and municipal claims due against each of the 4 properties is depicted in Exhibit B. Item number 5, approve the advertisement for request for proposals from vendors for geotechnical engineering services. Note that geotechnical engineering services will be required for the upcoming renovations to the Gateway Middle School. Item number 6, approve the master service agreement with DQE Communications LLC for wide area connection telecommunications network between school building services in the monthly pre-discount amount of $4,250 beginning on July 1st, 2020 through June 30th, 2025, as depicted in Exhibit C. Note, the district will realize monthly gross expenditure savings of $3,450 and total 5-year gross expenditure savings of $207,000 by entering into the above new agreement with DQE Communications LLC for the wide area connection telecommunications network between school building services.
Questions, comments?
Good question.
Yes, sir.
What is FBLA?
Future
Business Leaders of America. That was good. Huh?
Checking that one off. And item number 6, is that the information Micah just sent us?
Correct.
Okay, very good, thank you.
Any other questions?
Never asked what the FBLA is again.
All right, moving on to section G, resolutions by board members.
I'd like to make a motion to add an action item to the agenda for this evening.
So moved. Second.
Well,
Don't you wanna know what it is first?
Can I give a description of the item? I would like to add an action item for vote tonight to direct Mrs. Crump in HR to create an administrative position to include job descriptions and duties detailing the responsibilities and duties necessary to expand the scope of administration within the athletic department. This would be creating a new administrative position.
Second.
Okay.
Right now, we're voting to put it on the agenda.
Is there any discussion to put it on the agenda?
Can you describe what you're talking about? I think there's some people in the audience who are a little confused.
Basically, it's the idea of, we don't want to put a title on it yet, but we have some ideas of how to expand our athletic department. I think the hiring of Coach Hall was a tremendous first step. It's a restructuring of the administration within that department. And loosely, you could call it an assistant athletic director. We're looking at wording and job description and duties that would actually expand that beyond simply assistant athletic director into like more student services and expand those duties and responsibilities. Does that make sense?
All right, so you're not looking, you're just looking to hire, you're just looking to put an action item on that would allow the HR department to research and come back to us.
To create a
with that
position.
Position.
Yes.
All right.
Scotty? Now.
I'm a little shaky.
I have it written
Okay.
down, Bonnie.
Thank you. All right.
The motion is to put it on the agenda tonight.
Roll call when you're ready, Bonnie.
Okay. Mr. McIntyre.
Aye.
Mr. Ritter.
Aye.
Mrs. Warning.
Aye.
Mr. Williams.
Aye.
Mr. Caleri.
Aye.
Mrs. Cerucci.
Aye.
Mrs. Delaney.
Aye.
Mr. Gallagher.
Aye.
Mr. Gottman.
Okay, now that it's an action item, we actually have to have a motion to vote on it, and then a second, and then we can open it up for more discussion if you like.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Now you must request input from the
Thank you for the reminder, Mr. Ritter. Now that we have another item added to our agenda, which is the proposed creation of a possible new position in the athletic office, would there be any comments
Or
on this
questions?
from the audience?
Shame
Okay,
none.
seeing none. Are there any discussions? Anyone want to talk about this? Anybody have any questions for Ms.?
sorry.
Too late, sorry.
I just have a question, just for clarification purposes, I'm sorry.
Yes, ma'am.
My name's Jamil Biggs. I live at 302 Rosecrest, and I've been a Monroeville resident since 2008, so what is that, 14 years? My only question for clarification is, would this position be more of an academic assistant coach or with the athletic department, or specifically just with athletics?
I think personally, any position in administration within this district is dealing with academics. I think it's the more important part of Mr. Hall's newly acquired job over athletics. It's student athletes.
Correct.
So it would be a balance between the two.
Okay.
But, I think between the two positions, that's the idea, is we can expand the scope of the athletic department to reach further into academics.
Okay, understood.
I
Thank
think
you.
that, I would like to add to that too, that because we haven't really looked at or reevaluated our athletic department for, what did we say, 10 years at least?
It's been close to that. I think what the board is requesting here is really for administration, central office to take a look, a deep dive into the athletic structure, hierarchy, organization of the athletic department. And we internally are in position right now to do that with the current budget. We're in the budget process, and of course, we can analyze, develop goals, including, Mr. Hall's input on this as we move forward. So it will allow us some time to not only meet the needs of what Mr. McIntyre had put out here, but also give the public an idea of what is the structure, the organization, the goals, the development of the athletic program.
Okay, so we vote on this, it's really just giving the HR department the opportunity to create and come up with some proposed job descriptions for the department. Can I have a roll call?
Mr. Ritter.
Aye.
Mrs. Warning.
Aye.
Mr. Williams.
Aye.
Mr. Caleri.
Aye.
Mrs. Cerucci.
Aye.
Mrs. Delaney.
Aye.
Mr. Gallagher.
Aye.
Mr. Gottman.
Aye.
Mr. McIntyre.
Aye.
Okay, motion carries. There is another resolution for board members on the agenda this evening. It's a quite lengthy one. Mr. McIntyre, take a drink of water and then read this, sir.
Yeah, this is not an action item, this is for discussion. This will be on the agenda for a vote next week. Whereas the average Pennsylvania school district spends millions of dollars in taxpayer money annually in mandatory payments to brick and mortar and cyber charter schools, and these payments are calculated in a manner which requires districts to send more money to charter schools than is needed to operate their programs and places a significant financial burden on districts, resources, and taxpayers. And whereas the current charter school funding formula was established in 1997 under the state's charter school law and has not been changed in the 23 years since it was first created, and the formula for regular education programs is unfair because it is based on a school district's expenditures and not what it actually costs to educate a child in the charter school. And whereas the calculation for charter special education tuition is unfair because it is also based on the special education expenditures of the school district rather than the charter school. And although the General Assembly revised the special education funding formula in 2014 to more accurately target special education resources for students identified with high, medium, and low needs, this formula was applied only to school districts and not to charter schools. And whereas because the tuition rate calculations are based on the school district's expenses, they create wide discrepancies in the amount of tuition paid by different districts for the same charter school education and result in drastic overpayment to charter schools. These discrepancies in tuition rates for regular education students can vary by almost $13,000 per student and by $39,000 for special education students. Whereas the latest data from the PA Department of Education shows that in 2017 and 18, the total charter school tuition payments of combined cyber and brick and mortar were more than $1.8 billion, with $519 million of that total paid by districts for tuition to cyber charter schools. And whereas further analysis of the PDE data shows that in 2014 and 15, school districts paid charter schools more than $100 million for special education services in excess of what charter schools reported spending on special education. And whereas the cost of charter schools for school districts continue to grow significantly each year, and on a statewide basis are the most identified source of pressure on school district budgets, and whereas the need for significant charter school funding reform is urgent, and school districts are struggling to keep up with growing charter costs and are forced to raise taxes and cut staffing, programs, and services for their own students in order to pay millions of dollars to charter schools. Now, therefore, be it resolved and enacted this, again, it'll be next Tuesday, the 18th day of February, 2020, as follows. The Gateway School Board calls upon the General Assembly to meaningfully revise the existing flawed charter school funding systems for regular and special education to ensure that school districts and taxpayers are no longer overpaying these schools or reimbursing for costs that the charter schools do not incur. We, along with the Pennsylvania School Boards Association, are advocating for substantial change. All resolutions or part of resolutions which are inconsistent herewith are hereby repealed, and any section, clause, provision, or portion of this resolution shall be held invalid or unconstitutional by any court of competent jurisdiction. Such decision shall not affect any other section, clause, provision, or portion of this resolution so long as it remains legally enforceable, minus the invalid portion.
Thank you very much, Mr. McIntyre. Any discussion, questions, comments?
I need a nap.
Anyone? Wait a second. All right, seeing none. Comments from residents on non-agenda items?
Well, I just want to reiterate that I think there are some inaccuracies.
You need to step up to the mic.
So folks at home can hear you.
Michelle Detman, 304 Shalimar Court. I've been a resident and taxpayer, as I said, for 40 years. I moved here as an adult. I wasn't born here, so I think I've paid taxes longer than anybody in this room. I understand the school districts are under extreme pressure. In fact, my grandson goes to the Penn Hill School District, and you understand that that's in dire shape. But I do think there are inaccuracies in that statement. I'm only knowledgeable about one small school, but I can tell you that the conclusions being drawn, inferences from that with respect to charter or for Spectrum are inaccurate. I don't know more widely, but
I'm not opposing you endorsing a resolution that would have the legislature take a look at this. If it's been 23 years, it should be. I just don't think that necessarily the facts have been used in an equitable, non-biased manner in that. That's my...
If I can, I think I can clear some of this up. Some of this is unfortunate cosmic timing. The resolution I just read was not inspired by the renewal of the Spectrum Charter School. These are two separate issues.
No.
Though they are tied, okay, this was not a call, on my part to pass a resolution to have anything to do with Spectrum other than the fact that they fall under the general umbrella of charter.
And I recognize
Now, while I
that,
understand
yeah.
that you may very well be right, and I believe you, that the amount of money spent, tax money spent to that charter probably doesn't cover the costs. And I understand that because of the needs. But there is there's data and there's documents that statewide, it's a very common occurrence. It's not necessarily at yours,
Yeah.
but it's a very significant statewide problem.
I'm not disagreeing with you. I'm just saying that I think that there is also a huge, I've been following this, a huge political battle going on around charter schools. People have different positions, and I know as a lawyer, which is what I used to be, people can use the same facts to draw different conclusions. So I just caution you that, and I also understand that there's just a kind of fortuitous circumstance that they're on the agenda. I just wanted to speak to that because I had the kind of the background from Spectrum to take a look at the resolution. That's all. So I just wanted to. I couldn't sit there and not say anything, having said what I said earlier. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Is there anyone else who would like to address the board on agenda or non-agenda items?
Anything. What do you
Anything
got?
you want to talk about? Seeing none. I just want to comment on the cyber charter school initiative. It's something that the Pennsylvania School Boards Association is advocating for the Harrisburg to look at this. And that doesn't just include brick and mortar, it includes cyber. So we pay a lot of money to students that are educated from their home. So we're just asking the legislator to take a look at the funding mechanism. I'm wholeheartedly behind that. Yes, yeah. Any more public comment on anything? If not, I'm going to seek a motion. I'm going to go to reports.
Coach Hall, do you want to say anything?
No, I didn't put him on the spot.
Well, no, just wanted to offer you the opportunity. It was kind of flying by. I didn't know if you wanted to say anything or not. You have the option of.
You can tell him no.
You can tell me, in other terms.
I just wanted to thank the board. Clearly, I know these are difficult decisions. There's a lot that goes into it, and there's a lot of considerations. And at the end of the day, your task is a difficult one to try to always make decisions that benefit the school district. So, without question, I think I shared with you before how passionate I am about Gateway, how much I believe I'm a Gateway guy, and I think I also told you, and I'm doubling down on that. I'm going to spend every day that I'm the athletic director at Gateway validating this decision. I'm going to try to make you say, wow, this was a great decision, and he's doing great things for our district. This is a great district, the best district that I could possibly be associated with, and I'm thrilled to have the opportunity to have more contact with student athletes, and hopefully have a huge impact on the district for the time to come. Thank you again for tonight's action. Thank you.
Thank you, Coach Hall. All right, let's move on to superintendent's report.
Thank you, Mrs. Cerrucci. First off, congratulations, Coach Hall. I'll be in contact with you as well as Mrs. Crump to discuss things further. Okay. Also, last Friday, unexpectedly, we had 6 inches, 5 inches of snow, which resulted in a cancellation. Looking outside, it's gone. It's amazing. But school will be in session on Tuesday, February.
Monday.
Monday, February
President's Day. We
17th,
have
President's
Snow
Day.
makeup day.
Yes, so there was a blast
For the
at.
record, you'll have school Tuesday as well. Just want to make that clear.
Just to make it clear. Thank you. Email blast will go out as well as on Friday. So that's all I have for tonight.
That's it? All right, Mrs. Bungart, do you have anything? Dr. Shaky? Dr. Rossi?
Nothing further.
shot.
Actually, I do have a couple items.
All right.
First item, just as a note, just to let our public know that our first Budget and Finance Committee meeting is scheduled for Tuesday, April 7th. That will be at the Gateway High School LGI, and that will begin at 6 p.m. Again, that is Tuesday, April 7th, the Gateway High School LGI at 6 p.m. And just a second item just this evening, just to provide an update to our public. If you recall, a number of months ago, this board approved a resolution to do a bond refinancing for a series of 2012 general obligation bonds. Similar to when you're buying a house, you kind of you put some hand money down and then you wait to your formal closing. Our first step in that occurred on January 30th, where we were actually able to refinance the bonds. Our official bond closing will be scheduled on March 3rd. What we're able to do with that savings is basically to realize a net annual savings over the life of the remaining bonds, which run through 2032, of almost $1.2 million. So we've elected to take those savings over the life of those bonds. So basically an amount of anywhere from a low of $76,000 to about $82,000 of savings each of those years through future debt service reduction. So just want to provide an update with everyone for that.
Excellent.
Thank you, Paul.
Thank you.
Mrs. Crum,
Nothing at this time, but we do have positions posted on the website.
thank you. I'm gonna switch it up and start over with Mrs. Warning, so she doesn't have to be last all the time.
Okay. Coach Hall, it's been a long ride, but congratulations. Glad you're here, and wish you all the best of luck. Just a couple things, sports-wise, I want to stay on that, is last week R.J. Stevenson hit his 1,000 point in basketball, and that makes 2 for this, 1 for the boys, 1 for the girls. The girls on Friday took section champions for our division, and they beat Plum 31-29 at the buzzer. It was a great game. And the brackets are in. I don't know, Dr. Short, if you know, but Monday, the boys will be playing Shaler at North Hills at 8 o'clock. And Tuesday, the girls will be playing Penn Trafford at Norwin at 6:30. So come out and see them. They've got great teams going, a lot of excitement with the kids and everything. And one last thing, condolences to Mr. Ritter and his family on the loss of his sister. And that's it.
Thank you, Mrs. Warning. Mr. Williams.
Congratulations, Coach. Looking forward to working with you, and everybody came out to support Coach. Thank you. And also, John, condolences to your family for your loss. That's all.
Mr. Galton.
I just want to send my condolences to Mr. Ritter and his family for his loss.
Mr. McIntyre.
Along with, obviously, condolences once again for Mr. Ritter. I think that's
Sorry,
going to
but I skipped
start
him.
losing meaning here pretty soon, but.
We skipped
getting
me.
emotional.
That happens at home a lot.
sorry.
I mean, there are 11 of us, 2 half-brothers, so a whole lot of us. Thank you for all of the condolences that have come my way. Jeannie graduated from Gateway 10 years, after I did, and there's just been a tremendous, tremendous outpouring. And the grief comes and goes. It hits you like the ton of bricks, and it takes the wind right out of your sails, and you drop to your knees. And she was too young. She died of cancer, and so, thank you for everyone who's supporting the fight against cancer. I mean, it's a noble cause, and so thank you very much again. So for my report, I want to go back a couple weeks. We voted to do something nice for the kids who won a great, tremendous victory. We wanted to do something to help get them a memento and help buy some rings for them. After we all voted in favor of that, it really burned it in my conscience for a while. I was wondering why, and so I went out and I looked at Colonel Davy Crockett's speech to Congress, and it brought back a spark that I need to bring up tonight. And so I was sworn into office with the following words: I solemnly swear that I will support, obey, and defend the Constitution of the United States and the Commonwealth, and that I will discharge the duties of my office with fidelity, so help me God. Thus, I took an oath to manage the district's money in a fair and equitable and principled fashion, but on January 21st, 2020, I made a mistake. I voted for an appropriation from the public treasury, which was unconstitutional, inequitable, and morally wrong. My error has and may cost the students, the citizens of our district, the past and present and future board members in multiple ways, and my action demonstrated that I either do not have the capacity to understand the Constitution or that I lack the honesty and firmness to be guided by it. The Constitution, to be worth anything, must be held sacred and rigidly observed in all its provisions, small or large. And so I erred a small way, and I don't like that. So to be specific, where does one find in the Constitution any authority to give away the public money in tokens of commendation for athletic achievements? Consider that the man who wields power and misinterprets it is more dangerous the more honest he is. Visualize a man who honestly believes that certain money ought to be given to those who he deems worthy will fight all the harder to levy the people's money to satisfy his narrowly minded but ostensibly honest beneficence towards some. So upon reconsideration, I acknowledge that I do not have the right to indulge my sense of appreciation nor impose my generosity at the expense of anybody but myself. A noble cause can become destructive when it's under the direction of a misguided politician as me. So I ask for your forgiveness. My intention was to showcase our hardworking student athletes as models for others and to honor them by using the public's money to purchase a token of accomplishment. But unfortunately, this likely has the unintended consequences of diminishing the quiet and unseen accomplishments of quiet and unseen parents, grandparents, and others. Our student athletes and coaches achieved their goals by hard work, sacrifice, and adherence to the rules. I bent those rules by appropriating money from one citizen and transferring it to another. This is stealing. It is inequitable. It sets a poor precedence. It discredits the restraint demonstrated previously by those public servants who did not act capriciously and who refused to purchase favor with other people's money. Again, I apologize. Since the Constitution neither defines contributions towards mementos of accomplishment nor stipulates an amount, politicians like me are at liberty to give away anything and everything which they believe or profess to believe is worthy, and to any amount they think is proper. Doing so opens a wide door for fraud and corruption and favoritism on the one hand, and for stealthily robbing the people on the other. Individuals may donate as much of their own money as they please. Politicians do not have the right to seize a dollar of the public largesse for that purpose. And so, in closing, I wrote this before I knew that the ring amount had already been covered. So I was going to say I urge my colleagues to rescind our well-intentioned but unsound motion and to strive for a more conscientious and appropriate way to support the great accomplishments of our student population, both now and the future. So the long and short of it is, I erred. I was moved, by the generosity of the moment. I wanted to do something great for the students and help buy a ring. The money was gotten through donations, so the school board doesn't have to bring that money forward. But I will do my level best to not allow myself to be
John,
moved
I think
again.
we understand your,
Can you email that to Mrs. Zisha?
Sure.
Do that, that way she could have it for the record.
I'm sorry, you
understand
can
your-
say I spent a lot of time with this, really tore at my conscience. I don't want to be this way.
we understand, and we are also happy to report that the district doesn't really have to contribute any funds to the rings
Exactly.
because all the money's been raised.
Great.
So that's
Thank
great
you.
news.
And that came from Mr. Petroselli.
Mr. McIntyre.
Okay, I hadn't planned on that, but in response to Mr. Ritter, I would ask, the building right around the corner there has Dr. Cleveland Stewart's name in signage on the outside of that building. Presumably, that took taxpayer money. The football stadium that Coach Hall will be working in has a not giant name, with Pete Antamarino's name. That presumably also required taxpayer money. You yourself have proposed dedicating the track to our current track coach, which would include emblazoning his name on the track, which would undoubtedly incur cost of taxpayer money. These are all, in a sense, mementos. These are all honoring athletic and personal achievement within the district, and they all require taxpayer money. So if you're going to call it out on one, I think it's only fair if you call it out on the rest. I personally disagree with you. I think that what we decided to do was well within our constitutional right and our duty as sworn officers of the school board. I believe in the past, this district has also paid for championship rings and things of that nature. Typically, from what I understand, that money doesn't actually come from collected taxes. It typically comes from reimbursement from WPIL for revenue generated during the playoff season as a participant. So the football team would actually be funding their own rings with their performance and their accomplishments. So that's all I have to say on that. I had planned another response to a particular letter that was written to the editor of the Trib, but considering the time we've already been here and how much I've already spoken at this meeting.
A lot.
Thanks, Paul. I think I will save that for a later date.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Caleri.
All right. Congratulations, Coach Hall. I guess what nobody said is the ball's in your court because there's still a decision to be made, right?
I meant to say congratulations. Everybody's saying it.
Your turn's over.
Oh, shut up.
And he's still talking. Congratulations. And I also wanted to thank Ramsey. They had their daddy-daughter dance on Saturday. It was wonderful. I danced a lot, and I can dance, by the way. Don't let it fool you, but no, it was really nice. We had it here at the auxiliary gym. So I wanted to thank you. All the kids had a really good time. As did all the fathers, who most of them didn't dance, but this guy did. And just wanted to speak real quick about the Spectrum School. As one of the fathers stated, he did extensive research, and they looked around to find a good fit for their child. And as a board, and as a school administration, we feel very passionately about all of our students too. And, we need to do our due diligence through this review, as well as all of your input that you provided for us, so we could make the right decision for all of our students. I took exception to one comment that was suggested that we loaded the audience. That couldn't be further from the truth. I just chalked that up to emotion and good, healthy conversation. And with that, I'm done.
Thank you. Reverend Dr. Scott.
Reverend Dr. Scott.
I'm not beaming anybody up. It's just a Scott reference. First, congratulations, Coach. I wanted to thank everybody that came out and spoke on behalf of Coach and spoke on behalf of the Spectrum Charter. Just a little bit of revealing about me. Anytime that there's a major decision to be made, you're going to see me pause and then utter my decision. So please don't take a pregnant pause as anything more than a pause to collect my thoughts. Every decision that this board makes is a long-lasting and meaningful decision that has to be considered in that way. But those type of things aside, this is Black History Month, and I want to wish everyone a happy Black History Month. You never know exactly how to say those things, but I was told that's exactly how you say that. But I also want to point out something. John brought up the Constitution. I want to go back a little bit further. When our Declaration of Independence was framed, it said that all men are created equal, and we know that that was not true at the time that it was penned. However, as we celebrate Black History Month, and as the New Hampshire primary has closed for voting tonight, if it were not for the African Americans continually fighting for equal rights and the right to do that, we would not be able to say every vote counts, nor would we be able to say every voter counts. So when we celebrate Black History Month, we're celebrating our history as a joint community, and elevating and recognizing those that have not been written in the history books. So,
Thank you.
Well said.
Mrs. Delaney.
That was great.
How are you going to follow that now?
No, the reason I'm saying that, because I am going to say a few other things on that. First of all, congratulations, Coach Hall. And secondly, I had an opportunity to start going to some of the basketball games this weekend, and it brought back a lot of cherished memories of when my sons played basketball and then my other played football. So that was just a real good feeling to see the young people continuing the legacies. And also, again, my condolences, Mr. Ritter. But on that same note that Mr. Gallagher started, let me just reiterate for you a little bit about Black History Month. And as he said, it's for everyone. It's not just for African Americans or African, but the contributions are from those that are of African descent. And as I said, those contributions that have been done worldwide should be celebrated by everyone. Just a little background, the actual Black History Month, it started as Black History Week. Dr. Carter G. Woodson, back in 1926, started the Black History Week, and then it was created into the actual month. He was an historian from Virginia. He had 2 degrees from University of Chicago, and his doctorate was from Harvard. So he was a very intelligent, very learned individual. And he wanted to showcase, too, and wanted to make sure that the younger individuals, and as I said, not just the black students, but that all students would know of the great amount in terms of contributions that have been done over the year, and again, that so eloquently that Mr. Gallagher had mentioned. So please keep that in mind, and I am so glad I'm not the only one that was going to say something about Black history, and if anyone, I will next week give you calendars of different things that happen every day in the month of February, but I celebrate Black history every day, maybe for more obvious reasons than some of you. That's all.
Very well said. Thanks, Susan. All right. With that, I would like to seek a motion to go into executive session. Yes, I'm sorry. Our attorney, Bruce Dice, would like to speak. Every week I ask you, would you say no? And then one week I don't ask him, he wants to talk.
I just want to wish everybody a happy Valentine's Day.
Oh.
That's it.
Yes, we do. I would make a motion to go into executive session to discuss personnel. Is there a second?
Second.
When we come out of
When we
executive,
come out, we are going to adjourn. We will
No
not
other
have
actions are gonna
any
be taken.
further action items this evening. We'll take a 5-minute recess before we go.
5 to 8.
5 minutes. 5 minutes. Okay?
How much I had to do?
Okay, thank you.
I want to take a break.